Very helpful.
It's for Sarah.
Yeah.
Right, this is the first presenter. It's, oh, you're from the. Okay, I didn't. I was.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I know you. Very good. And then.
I got him.
Yeah. See, I recently.
Okay.
Mary and I are.
The co-op, right? Yeah. Like, good for you. We actually.
So they had to figure out how to do it, and I heard the other team really figure out how they know. So. Well, that's no, I meant like.
There was a couple people with their. I think that. All right, folks, I think we'll get things started here. So if you want to reposition your chairs up this way. Well, welcome to Northwest, excuse me, welcome to Northwest Illinois Economic Development's third Lunch and Learn this year. I'm David Schmidt. I'm the Regional Director of NWLED. We work throughout Joe Davies and Carroll counties. We started up in 2008, so we're going into our 16th year. We work directly with the business community and with the municipalities on different business initiatives. We try to do several outreach events throughout the year. And like I mentioned, we have a whole Lunch and Learn series. So every couple of months we do an event similar to this, but to be honest, this is the largest one we've done in recent years. So I appreciate all of you coming out today. The Davis Center is a fantastic host. So if you've not been to this facility, please have a look before you take off today. January will mark their 1-year anniversary of opening their doors. So congratulations to the Davis Center. I have a couple board members that I'll point out in the room. Bill Jinke, who's trying to eat his food, is our board chair. And Amy Schoenauer, who just skipped away. Oh, there's Amy. I'm flipping this way, is our board treasurer. And Barbara Sue Schubert over there taking photos today is our organization's program coordinator. And we also have a lot of members in the room and alumni of our programming, whether it's our Made in Northwest Illinois series, like Carol Moulds got involved with, or people that are members of the organization, those that come to our different events. If you need to get a hold of me, we have a whole packet of information on our organization, what we do and what we're all about, along with some of our recent mailers that many of you have already probably received. We now have your names and email addresses. So if you're not already on our mailing list, you will be by this afternoon. So expect to get more stuff and invitations from us in the future. We're running 2 topics back to back, or 2 presenters rather, and they're each going to touch on a couple different things that relate back to different programs that you can take advantage of at your businesses or within your communities. We're gonna start with the Illinois Department of Employment Security and Jane, and then we're gonna pivot over to Tammy with Business Employment Skills Team. I'll pass the baton and welcome Jane up here, and she'll talk for about 25 minutes or so. She has packets there. Tammy also has packets, and we'll try to get you out of here in about an hour. So, of course, you can stick around afterwards, have more food. We have the room until 3, so no rush on anything. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tammy.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Jane Verplates, and I work for the Department of Employment Security. I am a business services coordinator. And what I have to present to you today are services that the state of Illinois has available to you. Your tax dollars are paid for this service, but you may not be aware of them. So it's my job to make sure that you are aware of services that we have available, and we encourage you to take advantage of them. I'm gonna go off of my flyers here. The first thing I want to talk about is a program we call WOTC. Our agency is real big on acronyms. I apologize if I slip into that. Put your hand up. WOTC stands for Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And it is a program that is set up by the Department of Labor. And we're targeting the hiring of special certain groups of people. And you get tax credits for hiring those types of people. In the folder that I handed out, I have this, and it's an old handout that I shouldn't have in there, but I like it because it real easily tells you who's eligible. Okay, so the instructions on the back, they no longer apply because this is all online now. And another thing that I put in the flyer, the folder, I'm sorry, is the addresses that you can go to. Because this is an online process, and this is, again, talks more about the groups that are eligible and the amount of tax credits you can get. It's dependent on how many hours you work the employees that you hire. When I did this before the pandemic, before it went online, there are forms, and the form numbers are on the back here, and I suggested that you put that in your onboarding. And you tell the people that this is all confidential, but it helps your business. Because I might not want you as my boss to know that I was in prison. Okay, but you can get a tax credit for hiring me. So you have them fill out the information and then you submit it. The thing to remember about this program is you have 28 days to get the paperwork filed from the date that an employee starts. So if you hired me as an ex-felon on November 1st, that paperwork has to be filed by the 28th in order for the tax credit to go through. I would just make it 25 days. I'm a worst case scenario kind of gal, so that's what I would do. And you know, veterans are eligible, TANF recipients, people who receive SNAP, vocational rehabilitation, people who receive SSI income. So this can be helpful to a lot of people both ways. If you hired me as one of those groups, now it's probably not, it's going to be a year. Because we're going to wait a year and see how many hours we worked, and then the tax credit will be applied then. So it's not an immediate thing, but it's kind of cumulative. The more that you can hire, the better that it can be helpful. So I wanted to make sure you know that. Are there any questions? Okay, then I'm sneaking in another program that we have. Sorry, Dave. It's Fidelity Bonding Program. And that kind of goes along with this. I believe in second chances. I don't know if you guys do, but you have somebody that maybe you see promise in, but you're just not real sure. Okay, I would not hire Rita Frondwell to do my books, but there are other things, that where you might go, and this talks about that and things that you can do. And basically, the state will offer a bond. So maybe I'm packing boxes, but I wrote some bad checks. You want to give me a chance, and I'm not gonna be near your money, but you're not sure. You want to, but you're just not sure. So you can apply for and get a bond for me to be hired, $25,000. It says up to $25,000. It's a 6-year bond. You go through the 6 months, I seem to be working out okay. This bond can be renewed. That may give you some relief, some comfort, some fallback in case I'm not what you hope I would be. And it's a way to give people a chance. I will say that if you hire someone with a criminal record, they could be the best employee you've ever had. The doors have been slammed in their face so many times. And if it's not for a major offense, and maybe they did something young and dumb, who of us hasn't? And they want to turn their life around, you may be the thing that helps them to do that. So I want to make sure you know about this program, all right? Also in your folders should be, there is a, I think it's on the left-hand side, yeah, you've got it right there. It's what every worker should know about unemployment insurance. I don't know if you know this, but if you lay people off or fire them, or they quit, they leave your employment, by law, they're supposed to get a copy of that form. It's an old form because this is where you used to, supposed to put your stamp, Acme Widgets right here, and that's how you were gonna make it for your agency, and of course, nobody uses that anymore. But what's good about this also is it talks about how we figure out unemployment. It can be good to, maybe I'm not a good employee and I get fired after 3 months and I don't understand why I don't get unemployment. Because I didn't have any work history in the quarters of what we call our look back. Blame there, okay? But it also, you have to let them know that they have the right to apply. Doesn't mean they're going to get unemployment, but they have the right to apply for that, okay? So I wanted to make sure you knew that. The last thing I want to talk to you about is another program from the Department of Labor that it's my job just to get it out there to make sure that employers know about. It's called Workshare Illinois. Workshare Illinois is a program that's voluntary, and it is an alternative to employers that may have a decline in their business, but really don't want to lay people off, but aren't sure, is there a better way? This could be the ticket for you. The benefits to the employer are that you will temporarily reduce your payroll, and you get to keep your trained staff. If you've had to lay people off before, then you know how difficult it is when things tick back up again and you go to rehire people and you have to go through the onboarding and the recruiting and the weeding out, people that you just can see aren't going to make it, and maybe sending them for drug tests and, all that expense. If you've reduced the hours of your employees, you've got them. They're not going anywhere. You know what you've got. And when things pick back up, you just pick the hours back up. If you do work share, you are reducing the employees' hours by a percentage. A group of employees, and it's between 20 and 60% of hours worked is how the program works. If you put your employees on a 25% reduction work share plan, that's going to hit your UI cost less than if you just lay people out. So that's a benefit to an employer as well. Benefits to the employees. If you do a work share program, you agree that the employees get to keep their benefits. If you're giving them health insurance benefits, maybe contributing to a 401k, those things stay, even with the reduction of hours. This is good for the community as well. If you mass laid off people, they're going to go to the welfare office and try and get benefits because who doesn't need health insurance? That's traumatic. They're going to be stressing about where are they going to get their next job, all this kind of stuff. This still might be a little stressful. Their hours are going to be reduced, but it's like a furlough with benefits, and the benefits from our point, let's say that you reduced their benefits by 25%. You will determine who's going to be in the plan or plans. A plan has to be 2 employees. It can go up to 10,000. But you can do maybe a plan for admin and maybe a plan for assembly and maybe a plan for production. However, you need to thoughtfully think about this. What's going to, you think, work for your business? If you did a 25% reduction plan, then you get it set up. You want to talk with your employees because once that plan is a go, letters are going out to the people you have designated to be in the plan. You need to alert them that this letter is coming from IDES and it's not a mistake. Because it's going to have a plan ID number on it, and they're going to need that to sign up for unemployment. That plan ID number will designate them as a work share unemployment recipient. That is important because with a 25% reduction, as long as they work the hours in the plan, which on a 40-hour week would be 30, they are eligible for 25% of their weekly benefit amount of unemployment. Okay, so it's a supplement, it's a help to the reduction of hours. And like I said, the sweet spot for this program is 20% to 60. 61 can't do the plan, 19 can't do the plan. Anything between 20 and 60% of hours. The time frame can go up to 12 months. We suggest that you sign up for a plan for 12 months. I've had employers tell me, I just need to get through the 4th quarter and I'll be good. But do you really know you'll be good in January? No, you don't. So set it up long-term. You're going to save yourself the bureaucracy of having to, because the plan will shut down and you'll have to set up another one. I don't want you to have to do that. And if you're right, you can just shut it down and it's all good. Did you have a question?
Just a question, the unemployment benefits that the state will be paying, those continue to be chargeable to the employer's account for the calculation of their unemployment rate.
Yes.
So there is nothing in this program that goes to help them. Say they've had a downturn for 6 months. And they do the reduction, if it's 50% reduction, try to hold on those people that are skilled and they're trying to keep them employed. But maybe it's a small employer with only 5-6 people and they've got to lay off 3 of them because they've been hit. A lot of times those companies don't have the financial wherewithal to keep those people on the payroll because if business has dropped so much, they don't have the oomph, so to speak, cash in the bank to be able to carry them. Is there any consideration on the state level for this type of plan that those benefits, if they reverse and pull the people back within that 12-month period of time, that those benefits would not be charged to the employer's account? Because once they're charged, it takes 3 years to get those things off tally, so to speak, in the calculation of their unemployment rate.
If you do work share, you're hit less than if you do
Well,
full
it's
layoff.
proportional, but then you're
So
still
it'll be
paying the
less.
costs of having them there, plus their health care, plus everything else. So
My understanding is that the rates are calculated yearly now. So you would
Well,
have
they-
a hit for a year, but not for 3 years. I could be wrong.
yeah, but the unemployment, that they do a 3-year average. And so your benefit, they use a 3-year rolling, what is the relationship of the benefits paid to the overall payroll? And then that's put through a multiplier, and that's how you get your unemployment rate, which is up to, what are we, 13,000-15,000 or so, something like that, that you have to pay the unemployment in the state of Illinois. I don't know if you know the number. It's probably
It's like 13,000.
about $13,000. So if you're sitting with a 5% rate, you're paying that 5% on everybody up to their $13,000 rate. So you've got what, $650 a person you're paying. And that's why our business went through that. We went through the 90 downturn, we went through the 2000 hit, we did a lot of that stuff. And the problem is we had to lay people off because our business, sales dropped by 60%, 70%. We were tied in with the housing industry. And so we would pull a lot of those people back within 6-8 months because things turned quickly. But then we got hit with that and it took us 3 years to get out of it. That's the way they average. So you're saying that those are purely chargeable and they let the chips fall with your unemployment rate.
You're hitting, you will be taxed, but it's less of a rate than if you fully laid off people.
Well, but it's all proportionate, but if you don't lay them off, then you're still paying their salary, plus you're paying the healthcare benefits, plus any retirement program that you have.
Right,
And so, yeah, but if you don't have work for the people, you may not be able to do that because you're just gonna. have
well,
people-
and then you're gonna lay them off, so then
Yeah.
you'll hit, you're gonna be hit either way.
Yeah, it'd be
If
nice,
you're in a
it
situation.
would be nice if they did do some sort of program that would abate that charge off. If the people are returned to work into full employment within, say, 12 months, something like that. Anyway,
And
just a thought.
they're trying to help, and I can bring that to the Workshare group, like I
Yeah.
said, it's a Department of Labor program,
I know that.
so.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
I'm the peon, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're just trying to mitigate things, and I think the hope is that this would be a short-term solution that would help you get over a hump. I have an employer that I worked with to get their plan set up a couple weeks ago. And I called him yesterday and I said, hey, Brandon, how's things going? And he said, gosh, Jane, thanks for the call. He said, Murphy's Law, we haven't had orders in a month. We were worried about what we were gonna do. And he said, I don't even know if we need this now. We've got some orders. I don't know, what do we do? I said, just keep work your employees and put work in excess of the plan. They won't get paid, but the plan will stay open. There's some flexibility there.
Mhm.
So they can do that. And I said, usually Murphy's Law doesn't work that way for me. It goes the other way. I said, so that's wonderful if that works that way. But we're trying to build a plan that's flexible and can help you keep your employees that are already trained. And maybe it's not so much of a deal now, but I know after the pandemic, it was really, really hard for people to get skilled, qualified employees. And I work with businesses and they call me and say, Jane, just get me somebody with a pulse that'll show up to work. I don't care.
I don't think we have a single employer in our purview range that isn't looking for help. It's very, very difficult to find good people, especially somebody who can pass drug tests and show up every day.
Yes, and I had employers that say, we're not even drug testing,
Yes.
get that out there, we
Yeah.
just need bodies. And they got some people, and now some of the employers are trying to weed some of that out and get veteran because they saw how bad of a decision that ended up to be,
Mhm.
okay?
I had a quick question for you.
Yes.
So it's a time frame up to 12 months. Is there a minimum?
No,
So it could be a week?
you could do a week, however, there's always some caveats. The waiting week still
That was my next.
goes into place for this, so, some people might want to do work share for shutdown, a holiday shutdown.
Mhm.
That's gonna be your waiting week. Also, if you worked your employees, let's say oh, Thanksgiving's coming up. Let's say you work them 3 days and you're gonna give them 2 holidays and you think, I could do work share, I could do 40%. Well, holiday pay is ours. We're gonna look at that. So that's not gonna count. Also, if your company has PTO, and let's say you have an asthmatic child, I had one of those. And you never know when you're not gonna be able to make it to work. And so my son Luke has an episode, I call in, I can't come to work. If I take PTO, that counts towards the hours and we're okay. But if Luke was in the hospital a couple weeks ago and I don't have any PTO and he's wheezing and I think I gotta take him back there, I do not get work share for that week because I'll take off and I won't be paid. We're looking at the hours. Okay, same thing with vacation, but all that rolls in. Another thing, if you operate a union shop and you wish to do this plan, you have to get approval of the union in order to do this. Another thing that you may not know with your employees, let's say you do a plan, you get things set up, you have a huddle, you talk to them about what's going to happen. What if I had a couple kids in college and trying to make ends meet, and so I'm flipping pizzas at Casey's on the weekends. 5 hours Saturday, 5 hours Sunday. Those hours have to go towards the totality of what we're doing. Because if you reduce their hours 10, and then I'm doing 10 on my side hustle, I can't get 25% unemployment when I'm working full time. So I would suggest if you're doing this, that you say, if anyone works a secondary job, even if it's sporadic, I need you to come see me afterwards. This company I just worked with, their secretarial HR person caters on the weekends. But she said, I usually don't know until Thursday if I'm going to be catering or not. So, you know, we did a little creative stuff for her, and she has to actually certify her hours each week because she doesn't know. But if somebody's got something else going, that has to figure into this. And after you get something set up, then the employees initially are going to go in and certify how many hours they will work each week. If you've told them a 25% reduction, they'll put 30. And then following that, the employer weekly will put down from a drop-down menu, you know, Jane worked the plan hours, Jane worked in excess of the hours, Jane did not work the hours. And Jane will only be paid if she worked the hours, and then she'll get the percentage of the weekly benefit amount. For unemployment, you're supposed to be looking for work. We don't look at that for work share because you're working. So you're good to go on that. I believe on the form that the letter that I got you guys, thank you.
Yep.
It has information that you can go to. Let me see this. If you have questions, it's capital DES.workshare@illinois.gov. You can ask me, I've got my card there, you can ask me basic questions. If I cannot answer them, or if I'm not 100% certain, I'll send them up to the Workshare unit and get you an answer. But you can do that on your own, through the Workshare email, or there is a phone number too. Is it on here? I don't see it. Anybody want the phone number? It is 217-558-8150. And you can ask them any questions that you have. Yes, I can repeat that. Sorry. 217-558-8150. Any other questions that I might be able to answer? Yes.
This is in regard to tax credit calculation chart.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
the summer youth employee. Does that factor in college students and or high school students that are doing like paid internships?
I'm not sure about that. Summer youth is age 16 to 24.
Hmm.
I think it's more set up not for college kids, but I can find out. I'm not sure about
That
that.
category appears wide open and potentially that could be a magnet for employers.
I'll get an answer for you, sir.
Another few questions about this.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if the people from both rehab here or site or workforce development, from the viewpoint of high school and colleges. We're in a crisis here in Northwest Illinois. Okay, there are employers in the location where I come from who cannot get youth to work for them because they're not paying enough. So here's what they're doing. They're hiring people who are retired, who are on Social Security, and they're providing them with extra fringe benefits like free golfing once a week, like 50% off at the restaurant on the grounds. So even with those incentives, they're having some difficult time attracting employees. But I don't know if those particular organizations know about this kind of benefit to employers.
Well, we're trying to get the word out, and I've got up here, a website here of one, the first one is for the Fidelity bonding, and the second one is for the tax credits. DOL is Department of Labor, and if you go on that website, you may get more information, or there may be a number that you could call and get those questions answered as well.
Follow-up question, in regard to some of these categories here,
Mhm.
those of us who work with individuals with challenges. We provide as a support mechanism for employers if they decide to hire somebody who has a disability and is eligible for this program.
Tammy's waiting.
What I think, depending on if it is a verified disability, they should have a disability caseworker. And that disability caseworker should either be the support or be able to work with the employer to hire a job coach. So you would have to talk to, say if they're receiving disability and then, for example, Joe Davies County, Stevenson County, you would work with a person who is actually housed in Freeport. If you're down in, like, say, Whiteside County, you would work with a person who's housed in Sterling.
That factors in people who are not aged out from the education system.
Right.
21, yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Those of us who would work with wards of the state and kids who have had young adults, adolescents who have had psychiatric issues and or other kinds of challenges in their life. To be able to provide somebody to go in to the company and regularly check in with the employer, check in with the employee is critical.
And I think that might be Department of Rehabilitation Services. I think that's maybe what Tammy was alluding to. And I think those could be discussions that could be had at the time of hire, because that person would be with them then. And you could make your concerns or demands known and could work something out. Because I agree with you. They're going to need some coaching. I have a son who has autism. Very difficult to find a place to place him. And he definitely would need somebody to coach and to help speak for him, to make sure that the job was getting done to the satisfaction of the employer, and any issues could be worked out. You have to have that go-between.
This also applies to people who are looking for work. And there are some issues that we really need to address. This is not the time. that are very basic issues, one of which is employers' assumption about pre-employment skills. Like, for example, when you're on my time in my place, you just don't sit down for a moment. You don't do this, you don't do that. You're my employee, you're my time. And there are a lot of individuals that don't get something really basic like that.
I will tell you something, and I don't mean to slam our young people coming up because I gave birth to quite a few of them. But my husband works in a warehouse. And several years ago, he employed a man that was 80 years old. And I'm like, why is Lynn still working? And he said, one Lynn can do the job of 3 of those yahoos that are around the corner on their phones. He said, I love that Lynn's here. You know, I think it's just an ethics thing. I don't know, but it is definitely difficult. And I feel for you. They're not all like that, but there are some that are like that. And I know you all know them. Unfortunately.
I think we need to keep things moving with Tammy next.
That sounds good.
Jane will
Thank
be
you.
here for more questions, so if you have additional things you would like to talk with her about, she'll stick around. You know, we want to
Thank you.
be mindful of everybody's lunch hour here,
Yes.
or lunch hours. Thank you. All right, another familiar face to a number of you, I'm sure. Tammy Nearcorn with Business Employment Skills Team will be our next presenter, and then everybody's free to go back to work.
You don't wanna keep us a little longer?
Hey, we have the room all afternoon, so. I don't know how to-
Our policy is what happens here. Good afternoon, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm gonna fiddle with the podium, my apologies. As David said, my name is Tammy Nearcorn and I'm with Best. Can you guys hear me okay? If you can't, let me know. I have some allergies, so if you see me coughing or drinking my water, I'm not sick. I just have allergies. BEST stands for Business Employment Skills Team. We are a federally funded, not-for-profit jobs and training program. We help people get jobs, we write resumes for people, we work with people on interviewing skills. We also help people with training. And a good example of our training is, let's say this gentleman right here had worked at John Deere for 20 years and he was a welder. And he's like, he lost his job. And he's like, I need to go back to school. What we could do is help him go back to school to be retrained. Let's say he's like, I want to be a teacher. Then we can help him go back to school to be retrained. That would be under our 1D program, which is called the dislocated worker. Again, for that program, there is a limit in how much we can spend, but we also, recommend that our clients work with financial services and things like that at the various training facilities that they're going to. We also have a program where we work with people who are eligible for our training because of their income. And how that works is you have to meet the income guidelines and or have a disability. We also prioritize veterans. By the way, just real quick, when I'm done, Jack Cromer's over there in the black shirt. He is with IDES and he's going to talk about some veterans programs. He works with vets to help them get jobs and does a very, very good job as well. So again, Business Employment Skills Team, we just call it BEST Inc. We're federally funded. We are a not-for-profit. We cover an 8-county area. We cover Joe Davies, Carroll, Whiteside, Lee, Ogle, Putnam, LaSalle, and Bureau County. So we have kind of a large area. Back in the day, BEST used to be part of a program called JTPA. Does anybody remember JTPA back in the 80s? So it's a workforce program. So we do provide training and we can pay for that. And not only, let's say this lady here wants to become a nurse and she qualifies for our training program. We not only help pay for the schooling, we also help pay for scrubs, shoes, stethoscopes, just different things that you need. So it's a very well-rounded program. We also help people with work. We help people get back to work. Just yesterday, myself and Jack and some of our other staff and Jennifer Riley from IDES did a workshop at the Sterling Public Library to help people who were looking for work, develop job skills, help them write resumes and things like that. So we work with a lot of people. You don't have to be necessarily eligible to receive our services. I probably do 10 to 15 resumes a week. Somebody calls me up. 9 times out of 10, we can do it just over the phone, and I can email it to them or mail it to them, you know, just depending on where they're at. So we work on that. With our work program, we have something called, one of our programs that I like to do a lot, it's called OJT, on the job training. With OJT, a business hires a person, but before they start work, they have them come and see us, and we see if they're eligible for our program. If they are eligible, and if we have the dollars available, we can do an OJT. With the OJT, we have to sign a contract with the business and also with the employee. We reimburse the company 50% of their wages while this person gets on the job training. And it's wages. It's not like if they're in a salary, we'll have to break it down, you know, per hour or what have you. And that's just a federal standard that we have to go by. But it's a very good program because during this, let's say it's a 6-month program. And let's say they're going to become a CNC operator. What we do is we meet with them once a month. We go with the employee and their supervisor. We go over their skill development. We have a little checklist that we do. How are they doing? Are they getting the skills, you know, and are there any problems? Number one, it helps the employee because they get instant feedback. How many of you have ever had a position where you actually were doing a job, you thought you were doing okay, but you weren't sure because no one ever told you anything? Anybody ever been in that situation? You're like, ooh, you know, I think I'm doing okay. The people get feedback. Also, it helps the supervisor to have a time, because supervisors are very busy, businesses are stretched these days, to talk to the person and give them input. It also gives the supervisor somebody to bounce ideas off of. If there's a problem, let's say the person, and I know all of you employers have heard this, is on their phone a lot, or what have you. They can address it, but I can address it as well. So it kind of backs them up and helps them. Also, they can always talk to me without the employee, excuse me, there to talk about maybe issues. How would I bring this up? How would I bring that up? You know, things like that. It's a very good program. So you get reimbursed. Say you started in December. So say we did an OJT and somebody started in December. You'll get reimbursed for the month of December in January. Shortly after we had the January meeting, you had to submit payroll records and things like that. It's not really, you know, a lot of work. It is a little bit of paperwork, but it's a very good program. And you're saving 50% on their wages while you try them out. I mean, they're your employees, so they're still getting benefits and things like that. But I think it's a very good program. I think it's beneficial to businesses. It's beneficial to the employee. I think it's great because we have really seen some very good employees. And I asked Kyle ahead of time, we have done up in this area, we've done OJTs with one of the banks in the Joe Davies County area. We also work with Carroll Industrial Molds. That's how I got to know Kyle and Kurt. And we have done several OJTs with them and they have been very successful and all those employees are still there, right? For the most part, yeah. And it's a very, Kyle, what would you say as an employer? Because you can talk from the employer's perspective a lot better than I can. Is it an arduous process or?
The first time,
Yeah.
just figuring out all of the requirements and how to navigate the red tape was more difficult. Once we got the first one done, I think we've had 4, maybe 5
Yeah,
combination of OJTs and
and then the work experience.
work experiences. Once you get the process down the first time, it's not difficult at all.
It's easy
and-
breezy, yeah.
It is really nice to subsidize their training and have somebody else kind of help provide financially, because brand new employee is not going to give you the same output as a seasoned trained employee. So basically you're getting a $20 an hour employee for $10 an hour for 4 months as a trial. And it's very clear, Tammy makes it very clear that there's not always an expectation that they're going to stay on
Yeah,
all the time. I mean,
sometimes people are just not a fit,
yes.
you know, that happens, you know. We've all hired-
It's their probationary period, their first 90 days and makes it a trial. And we've had, the one that left was there for 4 or 5 months and found another opportunity based on the training and skills that we provided. So it only cost us half of that to get them to, a place where they wanted to go. They left us for a better opportunity, so they helped us, we helped them, they're now in a great place. We had no hard feelings about it, wouldn't have minded if they stayed, but
And people leave, you know.
yes.
People, we've all done that, but thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kurt. And I think with the OJT, again, it has to be, if funding's available, the person has to be eligible. And again, you do have to work with us and our fiscal department so we can reimburse you. So say, like I said, you started in December, we had the December meeting in January, you're gonna get the check about 2 weeks. Your reimbursement check about 2 weeks after that. If they're a veteran, we can add a little bit more to the percentage that we're gonna reimburse you as well. Again, pending on funds available. So that's one of the programs we do. Kyle also, go ahead, Kyle.
One more thing, talk about the difficulties of it. The most difficult thing probably going forward is, if I interview someone that I really like, we've got to get, it takes 10 days to 2 weeks. I can't start them the next Monday.
Yeah.
We have to get,
I gotta
they have
have
to
lead
get
time.
approved, paperwork has to be done. It sometimes can cause an issue there, and we have brought employees on that may or may not have been eligible that I couldn't let walk out the door. But we're taking you now. And I've told Tammy that we would like to run them through the eligibility, but we're not gonna risk the chance.
We're just hiring
someone else
them.
makes an offer.
Which is good. He gets an employee. It puts more people in the workforce. Even, I'm the person who left. Every time you train somebody, you're putting somebody into the workforce pipeline. And that's something we talk about a lot. I know it's difficult when somebody leaves and you have to replace them and the onboarding and all that. But somebody who learns good skills at your business is definitely going into the workforce pipeline, and hopefully sometime that'll come back to you. One of our other workforce programs is work experience. Work experience is, let's say you own a candy shop and you agree to have one of our people come into your business. We can only do work experience up to 29 hours a week. We pay their workers' comp and we pay their wages. So if you pay them, say you pay them $20 an hour, that's what we would pay them. We also pay the workers' comp for a short amount of time. So you would get to try out an employee at no cost to you. That said, though, that's when the funds are available. Now, we have a program right now, and we just have a little bit of it left because things go fast, called the supplemental program. That's a special grant that Carrie, our boss, wrote. With supplemental, the wage is set at $15 an hour. It's a federal grant, and that's where it's set. And it's a very short amount of time. It still works like a work experience, just the wage is what it is. So it's $15 an hour, which will be minimum wage in about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In Illinois. And again, same thing, you get them, you give them skills, you get the support of myself or whoever their business rep would be. We do evaluations and things like that. And our hope is after the work experience is done, that the person gets hired on, either full or part-time, depending on what works out best for them and for you. We know some places don't hire full-time. Again, but you don't have to hire them either. That's up to you. But again, we are still gonna work with them after that. And let's say they had a bad performance, because occasionally that happens too. Then we work with them to build up those skills. You know, you don't have to keep somebody if they come in and after a few weeks, you're like, nope, just let me know. You don't even have to tell them that they are no longer employed there. I'll tell them. So again, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna work out because we try to do a good match, but you know, not everything works. We also have a youth program. Our youth program is for people ages 16 to 24. And basically what happens with that is there's a lot more guidance and a lot more help to onboard people. Diamond Verboth, who is actually from Mount Carroll, and Sally Hanrahan does our youth program. And they work with the youth to get them ready to go to work. They also do job shadowing. You know, the kids can do job shadowing and things like that. Also, if there are some educational issues going on, they can hook them up with, like in Whiteside County where I live, the Regional Office of Education does GED training and things like that. Because this is one thing, and I was just talking about this with somebody last winter, so in January, we got our first supplemental grant, and we have a large, and I mean large homeless population in the Sterling, Rock Falls, Dixon area. I don't know if you guys have it here, but ours is large and it's getting larger. So I was talking to a lady that was at the shelter, and she had done a lot of caregiving for her grandma. She had good caregiving skills. So I called a company that I knew that employed people to do that. And they said, great. And I said, okay. Come to find out, she did not have a GED. She only attended school through her sophomore year. So even though they wanted to, they could not hire her. So if you're talking to anybody who doesn't at least have a GED, please, please, please tell them they need to get a GED. It's just different. I went to Rock Falls High School. When I went to Rock Falls High School, Northwestern Steel and Wire was up and running. And it wasn't real common for my generation, but say people 10 years older than me, it wasn't uncommon for a guy to drop out of school at 16, start working at the mill, made more than the teachers. That was just how it was back then. Did you guys have a place up here like that, I'm sure? Where that would happen, and they could get good wages, they were in the union, they could become an apprentice, which I'm gonna talk about apprenticeships, things like that, but that's not how it is anymore. Minimum of a GED, if possible. We also put people, it's not just necessarily traditional educational programs. We put a lot of people through CDL training. Let's say, for example, you want to be a CDL driver. And if you are eligible and we can pay for it, you go into CDL training, whether you go to 160 up at Highland or Sauk has a program as well. What you can do, of course I got to fly. What you can do is after about 6 weeks, you're coming out of school with an offer of about $57,000 a year. That's a good beginning wage, and that's if you stay local. If you go like over the road and depending on what you're doing, there's gonna be a lot more money. Yes, sir. I thought you had a
No,
question.
I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah, it's a good job, I
Walmart
mean.
will pay you 80,000-90,000 a year.
Yeah, and it's about, I think it costs us like $6,000 to put somebody through that, but the return on investment for that is great. Now, that said, our training funds right now are on hold because we spent out a lot and we need to see where we're at. We do have another program called Incumbent Worker Training. What we do is if you want to upskill somebody on your staff, so say she then decides to buy a trucking company and she has a guy in a warehouse and that's this gentleman. And let's say he's like, I'd like to be a truck driver. And she's like, okay. So you talk to me and we do an incumbent worker training application. I have to check everything out with the state. It takes a while. The state approves it. If the state approves it, then what we would do is we would pay 50% of his wages. You pay the other 50% or your business would. And if you pay him while he's getting training, that's your match. So it could end up costing a business absolutely zero. Incumbent worker training works very well. Has anybody ever done incumbent worker training or anything like that? Basically, we pay 50%, you pay 50%, but you can have that 50% waived if you pay them a wage that goes up to or beyond whatever your match would be. So say it's 5,000. And so we pay 2,500 and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna pay them and say their wages, just because I'm not good at math, say their wages $25 an hour or what have you, you're gonna meet that pretty quickly depending on what the wage is. And we've done a lot of incumbent worker, yes, sir.
Is it only if you start a separate entity within the business, or could it be like a promotion?
Oh, it could be a promotion, absolutely, absolutely. It has to be somebody that's working for you for the incumbent worker training, and they have to be there at least a year too. Because again, we want it to be a promotion, we want it to be a wage increase as well. And the reason I was using CDL is just because I just got done writing one, so it's on my mind. And I definitely think that, but there's a lot of different things. We've done computer training. that has to be proctored. So let's say if this lady, she's a successful nurse now, we put her through nursing school. And she's got a whole business now, she's got a home health business, but the people need training to be upskilled to use your computer system. If it's approved by the state, and that's the thing, I don't approve it, the state approves it. So what we do is, you talk to me about it, we have a meeting, we go through everything. You present it to me, I present it to the state, and then the state responds back in about, it just depends on how busy they are. No. I mean, typically like 2 weeks, typically like 2 or 3 weeks, but I need lead time. I need lead time because I'm in 5 counties, but so again, then she would have to pay half of it. We could pay half of it. We don't pay for soft skills, incumbent worker training. And what I mean by soft skills, I don't know how else to phrase it, but soft skills, like we don't do, thanks. Thank you. We don't pay for CPR training. We don't pay for anything OSHA. We don't pay for anything out of the box like Microsoft and things like that. But let's say if it's a CNC computer training that you need, that is something that we have paid for before. You would have to proctor them though, or have a supervisor, proctor them and sign off. If it's an online training, definitely there's a lot of assurances versus like if her truck driver guy is gonna go to school, then we, the instructor does that. And we work with these schools a lot, so they're very good as well. So those are some of the things we do at Best. We work with businesses, we do job fairs. We just had one last Thursday. Anybody ever wants to have a hiring event, we can help you with that as well. We've done them up here. Jack, when was the last one we did in Mount Carroll? Was that last summer? Yeah, at the Mount Carroll Library, we had one. So we can also do them within your community. And the Mount Carroll Library has a really nice room towards the back. It was very nice. We've done them in Galena. My first year with Best, we worked with Honeywell in Galena, and Honeywell gave us like a year's lead time, which was nice. We were able to work with their employees, help them figure out what the best way to apply for their IDES. The IDES staff did that portion. We worked with them and whether or not they want to get training jobs, what have you. We had job fairs in Galena for them. And again, you hated to see that place close and you hated to see that place leave Galena. But because Honeywell gave us a lot of time, we were able to successfully place, or they went to school or, what have you, very highly skilled employees. So those are some of the things we can do. You can also call us just for some general advice, not legal advice, but say you have a situation with an employee or something, or, give us a call. We are definitely here to help. We also work with our partners at IDES to do rapid response. That's what we did at Honeywell as well. That was also a trade event. The Trade Act was not reauthorized in 2019. It wasn't reauthorized, but with trade, there's a little bit more funding that we can help the people with. And that's for jobs that go outside of the United States, but that wasn't reauthorized in 2019. So I am going to grab a chair if you guys don't mind. Can you guys hear me okay? Oh, I'll just grab this. Thank you. I appreciate it. She's a rich business owner now. Yeah, so we can take that. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. The reason we started doing this lunch and learn, it really started from a conversation that David, Barbara Sue, and I had, what was it, July or August? Was it? Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I came up to talk to them and we were talking about people who want to be in the workforce. And I see this a lot, and I bet a lot of you do too. But they're not thought of as the traditional worker. That's why Jane came in and talked about WOTC. You can get benefits from hiring people who just got released from jail, who, are a veteran, are 55 or older. There are different help you can get, but also we decided to get, so I got some trustee statistics to talk with you about some of the statistics in Carroll and Joe-Daviess County. So that's kind of how this started, is you guys have a unique population here. And it's very unique because you have a lot of people who have an extremely strong work ethic. And I'm gonna just quickly and I won't bore you with a lot of stats. I'm gonna read this to you. No, I'm not. I'm gonna, pick a lot of, I know I saw someone's eyes back there be like, oh my gosh, she's gonna read. No, I'm not. But for example, the prime labor force age, which according to DOL is between 25 and 64. Carroll County has a 72.4% participation. Joe Davies County has 88.9% participation. That's great. So you got people that want to work, but there's also people beyond that. For example, people age 55 to 64 years in Carroll County, that is 14.4% of your population. In Joe Davies, it's 15.9% of your population. And when David and Barb and I were talking, I said, you know, there's a lot of older people who want to work, but they don't want to work full time, or they need an accommodation. Like, for example, I had to sit down because I got a bum leg. So there's different things that employers can do. Now, you know, could I be somebody's, you know, marathon runner? No, I could not. There's a lot of different jobs that people can do. There's a company in Oregon that a lot of their welders retired at the same time. And they needed welders, and they needed good welders. And you know, welding's a good profession. It's a skilled profession. So what they did was to work with these retirees to come back on a modified schedule. If somebody needed a stool or a modification, you know, minor, they gave it to them. They also gave them a modified schedule. So let's say, for example, I haven't picked on you guys yet. These two are retired, but they want to work a little bit. But she's like, I only want to work in the morning, and then I want the afternoons free because I'm coaching my grandson's basketball team. And let's say she's like, well, I only want to work every other week and I can only make so much, otherwise it's going to affect my social security or my pension. Or let's say, for example, somebody is like, okay, I want to work during these months, but then I go to Florida, which a lot of people do, or someplace warm in the winter. So again, they thought outside of the box, and it really benefited them. And they got like really skilled, seasoned welders who were also able to help people who were new welders and didn't necessarily have the skills that you get from being a long-term welder. So one of the things that we talked about was looking into your population of people. What about your retired workers? What about people who are older and want to work, but and I hear this all the time. I talk to people all the time who are very skilled workers, and I'm not talking about up here, but just in general. And they feel like somebody won't give them a chance. So that's something. Is there an older person that you can make, and maybe they don't need accommodations, they may not. Is there somebody with a disability that you could make an accommodation for? Is there somebody who, and again, when we talk about disabilities, there's all kinds of disabilities that people have. People have invisible disabilities. So again, when Jane was talking about when they fill out that form for HR, they may not. So if say somebody's on disability because they have a psychiatric issue, for example, they may not want to tell you because you're their supervisor, but yeah, they'll tell the HR lady, you know, fill out that form and you get a tax credit for that. I mean, it's just something to think about. And that's something too. And I think all of us are young enough to realize that having and this is just something you see a lot, people who have had a mental illness is just like having diabetes, heart disease, or anything like that. It's an illness and it's treatable. And those are one of the things I think is very important to get people back into the workforce. People want to work. We have put a lot of people with disabilities back into the workforce. Again, they had to sign off so we could talk to the employers about it, you know, because of HIPAA and things like that. But there were a lot of good employers that gave people a second chance, and they were so grateful for it. And when Jane mentioned prisoners hiring ex-felons, or we call them returning citizens, that is a population 9 times out of 10 that is so grateful. And we put returning citizens in jobs. One, for example, we put him through training and then he got a really good job. There was a gentleman who, he was like early 40s. When he was a kid, like when he was 17, he was, you know, ran with the wrong crowd, which who hasn't? Or you dated the wrong guy or the wrong girl or whatever. Everybody makes mistakes when they're 17, right? Some of us made all those mistakes when we were 17. Some of us didn't, but We probably know somebody, right? We have a friend or a cousin or what have you. Anyway, this guy was with a bad group of people, ended up like, was in a fight, ended up it escalated. He was charged with murder. He did over 20 years in prison for murder, got out. And he, he got his GED while he was in prison. He was an ideal prisoner, and he came into our office and he met with Shelley Zinke, one of our career advisors, and he goes, I want to be a CDL operator. Put him through school. He was like the top student. The instructor loved him because he knows how to follow rules, and he doesn't want to go back to prison because the prime of his life was spent in prison. Anyway, long story short, David,
You have a relationship with Thompson.
we do. We have a relationship with Thompson and the Dixon prison as well. Yeah. Yeah, we do. This guy was not a Thompson, though. He was someplace else.
I know Highland has a number of programs at Thompson.
Yep.
To get people ready to get out.
In fact, speaking of welding, because I don't know why I'm stuck at home, my dad was a welder. But speaking of welding, I had a meeting, and David, I think you were in on this meeting too. It was myself, David, my boss Diana, the welding instructor from Highland, and another company. And the welding instructor from Highland said, I love to teach the inmates. They're there, they want to work, and he said they're some of the best welders he's ever seen. Because people act like welding isn't an art. It's an art to be a good welder. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have like an upholstery type of department? Because my ex-husband's brother learned upholstery in prison.
I'm not sure if they have that at Thompson. I don't think they have it at Dixon, but I'm not sure, but I can ask.
Yeah.
I can ask. Yeah. Was he in federal or state prison?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's been a
Okay.
long time.
Well, yeah, because, sometimes there's different programs and different things. Sometimes too, it depends on the offense too. And, are you able to keep yourself in check or not, obviously, but, the guy who I was talking about who, had in a fight, I mean, these days we probably call it, second degree or whatever. Anyway, he was charged as an adult, did over 20 years in prison, graduated from that program, got hired, and is doing great because we monitor them for several years afterwards. And Shelley still talks to him, and he's doing great. And again, he would come in the office and, nice guy, whatever, and it just makes me happy that we give somebody a chance. We all know people that make mistakes. We've made mistakes, and it's given him an opportunity, and it was really, really helpful. Sorry, I digressed on that story, but I think it's worth telling you that we work and try to help with everybody we can. We also have an apprenticeship program. Now, we're apprenticeship navigators. That's what our program is. So we can work with a company to develop an apprenticeship at your business. What that means is, say, for example, we want a nurse apprenticeship with your company. We can do that. There is not, to the best of my knowledge, there is not any legal profession that we cannot develop an apprenticeship for if one has not already been done. We work with the Department of Labor. We work with Nikki at the Department of Labor, and we help the company develop an apprenticeship. Good things about apprenticeship, if you get in companies that have a good apprenticeship program, it's a good way to recruit. You have a much higher retention rate. People that become apprentices in Illinois stay there about 91% of the time. Nationally, it's about 93% of the time. And we can definitely help you navigate that process, because it's a process, but it's a good way to put people into the workforce. They're getting skills. They're also getting increases. So say, for example, our nurse, say she starts out at, what would be a starting wage for an RN, like 45 an hour? Something like that. I don't know, I'm acting like you're really a nurse. Now I believe she's a nurse. So say it's $45 an hour to start, but as she becomes an apprentice and gets more training and more skills, that wage is gonna go up. And that's a good thing about apprentices. How many of you know or were an apprentice in your lifetime? Anybody? We can do it in all fields. We're working with an IT company to develop an apprenticeship for that. And it's basically the IT people that when you do something to your computer and you have no idea what it is, hence story of my life, then, they come out to your house and fix it. So there's just nothing that can't be an apprenticeship. Good things about having an apprenticeship, you get a $3,500 tax credit, and if they're an underserved client, like Jane was talking about, you get an additional 1,500. Lots of famous people were apprentices. Ben Franklin, everybody knows, Da Vinci, Stella McCartney, who now makes clothes. She started out as a tailor apprentice. That's a good apprenticeship to get into. I was thinking about you like sewing, Michelle,
Yeah.
things like that. Michelle, do you want to be an apprentice? But like if you like sewing or things like that, being a tailor and an apprentice tailor, you're gonna make a lot of money. You know, so just something to think about. I want to get to a few more statistics about your community. One way to market your community up here is your commute time. The average commute time for workers in Carroll County is 22.1 minutes. In Joe Davies County, it's 21.8 minutes. Now, again, that depends on where you're going, the roads, the weather, you know, things like that. But when you talk about commute time, anybody here ever worked someplace where you were basically going 10 miles and it took you like 45 minutes? Yeah, me too. Nightmare, right? Now here, even though people are like, well, it's so large geographically, it is, but you can make time, right, on those roads. I came up here from Sterling, it took me maybe, you know, luckily there was no road construction or anything. It took me maybe 40 minutes, you know, give or take. I mean, that's a good commute time. I guarantee you, if we were in one of the suburbs, that probably would have taken me an hour and a half. I have a good friend that works in Rolling Meadows, and he's like 5 miles from his workplace, but it takes him like a half hour to get to work. And that's on a good day. That's on a good day. So again, your commute times, I'm gonna give everybody copies of these. I'm gonna email them to David, and David and Barbara can send them out. Poverty levels. Poverty levels in Carroll County right now is 11.2%. In Joe Davies, it's significantly lower. It's 7.8%. However, households receiving SNAP benefits, and these are as of October, by the way, 12.1% in Carroll and 8.1% in Joe Davies. Also in Carroll and Joe Davies, I looked up a stat for disconnected youth. Disconnected youth are, and I think you were talking about working with youth. They're people who are like between 16 to 19. They're not in school. They haven't graduated, and they're just kind of waiting for something to happen to them. The number of that let me just pull this up, sorry. In Carroll County is 28.5%. And in Joe Davies County, it's 28.4%. That's significant. That's significant. I'm sorry, I just gave you, sorry. No, I gave you, sorry, I gave you the wrong statistic. My apologies. It's 9.4% and 3.5% in Joe Davies. I know, I apologize. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry, my apologies, because I'm looking at numbers. Okay, for disconnected youth, in Carroll County, it's 9.4%. And in Joe Davies, it's 3.5%. My apologies. See, I made a mistake, and you guys aren't. I made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, and I think that's important. And that is something that we talk about quite a bit with employers. Let's say you want to hire somebody and you're doing a reference check and someone's like, oh, this person. Have you ever hired somebody that you got a bad reference about and they ended up being a good person for you? Of course. Maybe some of you have worked in the past someplace where somebody didn't like you or they didn't think you were a good worker. And they may have given you a bad reference. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person or a bad worker. So think about that when it comes to references and things like that. People make mistakes. The statistic I did give you are children living in single parent households, 28.5% in Carroll and 28.4% in Joe Davies. And again, my apologies on that. I'm sorry. I don't wear glasses yet, but I'm thinking maybe that horse is out of the barn for me at this point, right? My apologies. So the reason I'm giving you these statistics is because you have a lot of people who aren't in the workforce that may want to be. So what David and Barbara and I were talking about is maybe having a work group after this event of people that want to get together to talk about unreached people in Joe Davies and Carroll County that may want to work. Has anybody hired, and don't give me names or anything like that, a non-traditional worker, say older, or somebody who had a background that ended up being a good worker? Anybody have a?
I heard Miss Barbara Sue.
Well, she told me that you were her house.
Retirement, I guess I'm gonna tax.
There you go.
What do you consider?
Older is honestly what I hear from people. That there was a factory in Sterling that laid off a bunch of people. These guys were good workers, experienced. They were like in their 50s. And they felt like, part of it might be they were used to working and making a decent wage. But yeah, we see that type of discrimination sometimes, or people don't even think about it. They're just like, wow, they wouldn't want to work for me. So if somebody needs a job, and I've had this just had a conversation with a guy 2 weeks ago. We were working with him in our program where we get people jobs and it would have been a work experience. And I told him what the wage was. And he goes, Tammy, I don't care what it is. I gotta work. There's and again, I'll get off my soapbox for you now. There's dignity in work. You see changes in people. Anybody ever have somebody that's down on their luck? And I don't even mean economically, but obviously we all work because none of us are millionaires. But they're down on their luck. They feel bad about themselves. You get them a job and they turn it around. So. Thank you. If anybody wants to talk to me about any of our programs, my card, I'm happy to hear, so you didn't have to worry about losing a little card. You can give me a call. I'd be glad to help you. Also, if anybody's interested in talking about internships in the agricultural industry, talk to me. I'd like to talk to you about that as well. There are youth internships that people can do. Some of the schools are doing really good youth internship programs. David does an excellent program every fall and spring, I'm thinking. And it's the manufacturing day program where kids actually get to go in a factory. How many of you, when you were kids, got to go with your mom or dad to work? Anybody? I did not. I did not. And I always would like to see it. My dad worked at Northwestern Steel and Wire. Now I knew he welded because he had a welding bench at our house and sometimes we would sneak in there, try our own welding. But it's just giving kids an opportunity because a lot of people think, and you guys know this more than I do, how many of you, or maybe your kids have friends whose parents have never worked? Now, like when I was a kid, everybody's dad worked. Most moms stayed home, but not all. That was just the thing that I grew up with. But there are a lot of kids today who they have not had a parent that's had a job or had a steady job.
Or grandparents.
Or
It's
grandparents.
multi-generational. There's some of them in this area. You have 3 generations living in a house. Not one of them's ever worked.
Yeah, and imagine that. So David,
Yeah.
through his genius, has done and expanded this program where people can go in and see what it's like to go to work. Imagine something, who here is first generation to go away to college in your family? If your parents didn't go to college, my parents didn't go to college. It's like, oh my God, college, a lot of people think they can't do it. It's the same thing with jobs. Anyway, I appreciate you guys coming out. I really appreciate it. We do want to start a Carroll and Joe Davies County Workforce Group to see how we can get more people in the workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's more food, but you're free to go. Thanks for coming, everyone. I know we went a little long, but I appreciate you coming. Hopefully you got something out of this. Barbara still has all your contact information. We'll share it with Tammy and with Jay. So if you want to follow up, you can reach out to me. I'll connect you or I'll be reaching out. All right, have a good day.
You guys, sorry about that. Yeah.